Kentucky Derby.
Move around the turn. The leader, War Admiral, 2.5 for clear.
Secretary is in the center of the racetrack. The Admiral Sloop drawing alongside again.
War Emblem is still there. War Emblem is pulling away. He's got another gear.
Yeah, the Swiss they come in the Derby. Wheel away takes command.
Lion Hart is all heart. Smarty Jones is all out. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle's Slow of 1976.
Shine and rise. Happy Easter, everybody, and welcome to the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by Twin Spires. A little bit cooler here this morning. Temperatures approaching 60 degrees, but the main track is rated as fast. And after a huge day of workouts yesterday, a little bit calmer under the Twin Spires here this morning as we take a look at the headlines. All runner-ups in the respective final Kentucky Derby preps. Sovereignty, East Avenue, Publisher, all impressive in their Saturday morning drills. 11 days off his Bluegrass win, Burnham Square logged a maintenance breeze for Ian Wilkes and Brian Hernandez Jr. Jeff Ruby Stakes romper Final Gambit, who has never run on a traditional dirt surface, proved he might be worth the risk at the betting windows off a solid breeze over the Churchill Downs main track. And the upstart Chunk of Gold, a $2,500 yearling purchase, continued his preparations at Turfway Park for trainer Ethan West, who will be starting his first horse in the Kentucky Derby. Joe Christovac and Tony Kalo joining you. Happy Easter, everyone, and happy Easter to you, Tony. We arrived here at Churchill Downs on the set to find some Easter eggs. The Easter Bunny apparently dropping those off. And a little bit festive, but I'm waiting till after the show to open those to find out what's actually inside.
Yeah, hopefully we've got some chocolate goodies or something in there. Love Easter Sunday as a kid. Christmas and Easter Sunday, couple of great holidays, that's for sure.
Now, it might have been the Easter Bunny, or it might have been one of the Kilroy kids that dropped off the Easter eggs on the set. And speaking of Kilroy, here's Kevin up on the fourth floor. Kevin, it was a huge day of works yesterday. Very important day in the handicapping process to see these horses and what they've been doing and those finishing touches that are being applied. What caught your eye yesterday morning? Good morning and happy Easter to you.
Yeah, happy Easter, Joe. Happy Easter, Tony. I'm a firm believer in the Easter Bunny, so it's got to be the Easter Bunny who did it. I've seen his magic at work. I also saw the magic of the horses yesterday. Big work tab. One thing you want to keep in mind as a handicapper, right? You've got the works, and you can get very invested in them and make your opinions based off them, but you got to keep the PPs in mind as well. Who's run fast enough and who needs to move forward? In terms of horses that I'm seeing move forward, who could maybe hit the board, maybe pull off the upset, I saw one from the Derby side, one from the Oaks side. We saw Final Gambit for Brad Cox. Big move with Coffee Talk. I thought that was very impressive against good company. Big energy late. He's definitely handing the dirt here at Churchill Downs. And then Simply Joking for Whit Beckman. That filly moved so impressively. Almost pulled Florent Giroux's arms off in that move yesterday. So I think that she's moving forward as well. And that's great to see. And hopefully can help us cash on that first weekend in May. I know Caitlin Free's always got that good information. She's on the backside with us. She's been talking to horsemen, to exercise riders, and getting the scoop. Caitlin, happy Easter to you. What do you got for us?
Well, happy Easter, Kevin. I think I maybe got skipped with the eggs back here. Declan Cannon just swung by and asked if I had any eggs, and I said no. I think the Easter Bunny left me out, but the set definitely had some, so happy Easter out there to all of you. And yeah, definitely been hearing a lot of chatter back here on the backside. I actually caught up with Edgar Morales yesterday, who was on board East Avenue for that work. He worked that horse quite a bit down at Fairgrounds as well, and he told me that this is just a different horse here in the state of Kentucky, no matter the track. He didn't think it was a surface thing with Fairgrounds when it comes to East Avenue, more so potentially the fact that it's a little bit more humid down in New Orleans and the fact that it has a lower type of a sea level, that this horse just kind of really prefers the state of Kentucky, which I thought made a lot more sense because I really like the way East Avenue was moving throughout his work yesterday. He's a beautiful workhorse no matter what. I'm going to be talking about him a lot throughout the course of the show, so stay tuned, but do want to remind you there was a plethora of horses, whether it be Kentucky Oaks contenders or Kentucky Derby contenders, contenders that did work yesterday. Those workers, as well as Admire Daytona, are going to be having walk days throughout this morning. And also because it's a holiday, there's a lot of barns that really aren't as active that are going to be having walk days as well. So guys, I think there's a distinct possibility that we may not be quite as busy out on the track here this morning.
We'll have no problem filling the show, Tony. I want to talk about that change in sea level angle. Maybe a positive for East Avenue, maybe a negative for Tistastic. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, I've never really used that in my handicapping of horses. I've used it for football and basketball when teams go to Denver.
Right, exactly. Right. No doubt. You got to have the stamina when you play in Denver. And of course, you got to have a good lineup when you play in Coors Field.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the current Kentucky Derby points leaderboard. A lot of these horses did work yesterday. Caitlin alluding to the fact that most of them are going to have walk days here today. Burnham Square, the leader amongst those, all the way down to Chunk of Gold, who worked yesterday at Turfway. We're going to take a look back at a lot of these works over the course of the show here this morning.
Yeah, we get to reevaluate. Yesterday we're on the fly trying to give our opinions as we're seeing it. Today we've had time to digest all the works, and we'll get to look at them a little bit more this morning, which is going to be pretty cool.
Let's take a look at the horses on the outside looking in. 4 Avendeo Equos would be the first one to get in, by Aza sitting at number 23 currently. Sovereignty, he's already been proven here at Churchill Downs. He had a good start to his 3-year-old season, coming in off of a runner-up performance last out, but he had a powerful workout yesterday here at Churchill Downs for trainer Bill Mott. Started slow but finished very, very powerfully.
Yes, he did. Somewhat reminiscent of his Fountain of Youth final furlong. I thought that final furlong in the Fountain of Youth was one of the more impressive preps I have seen leading up to this year's Kentucky Derby. I am looking forward to seeing Sovereignty continue to thrive here in Kentucky.
Yeah, this is the end of the work. Powerful, strong, just gliding over this racetrack. And like I mentioned earlier, already a stakes winner at age 2 here at Churchill Downs. Burnham Square's work was a little bit different yesterday. He just ran, like I mentioned earlier, 11 days ago, so more of a maintenance move for him, but he's coming off his signature win in the Bluegrass last out.
Yeah, he put it all together in the Bluegrass in that maintenance move yesterday. A little eager through the early stages, but once he settled beautifully.
Let's take a look at the work yesterday as we bring Caitlin Free back in. And Caitlin, you had an opportunity to talk to Ian Wilkes yesterday. He said this horse needed to do something. We've got visual evidence of it right here.
I did, Joe. Ian just kind of really reiterated that if he sat on this horse too long, he would definitely get mad. He said he needs to train this horse. He needs him to continue to move forward. And the way he looked, just really wanting to get into that work, and the way Ian is kind of that old school type of a trainer, the way he progressed in this year's Bluegrass, I think his best still could be ahead of him, and we could be looking at another peak coming into this year's Kentucky Derby. Could a peak like that be good enough to beat the likes of journalism? I'm not 100% sure, but it should put him pretty close right there. Brian was able to relax him. I kind of mentioned yesterday, Brian has some of the softer hands amongst the riders, the exercise riders. He's a fan favorite when it comes to trainers using him on board workhorses, as well as these race horses in the afternoon. So he's able to settle Burnham Square down there quite nicely, level out for that maintenance move.
Let's transition over to Kevin Kilroy. What are you seeing here, Kev?
Yeah, this was an interesting move. This was the head scratcher that I've been thinking about a lot. Very eager early, but we also did see early that there was some other Derby workers who were kind of towards his inside. They might have got him a little bit excited, but I like the fact that he finished off with big energy. I mean, he's just coming off that Bluegrass race, and he could have been cooked by that, right? You always want to ask that question about was the last race is the real Derby. So Burnham Square definitely showing that he still has run and still eager to get his best performance to us that first Saturday of May.
The likely Kentucky Derby favorite, Journalism, has yet to see the Churchill Downs main track. He will be arriving here on Tuesday, but he has the resume and he has been visually impressive. He's overcome adversity in a lot of these wins, including the Santa Anita Derby, Tony, in his most recent start.
Yeah, drawing the rail in a field of 5, he found as much trouble as you could in such a small field, and he still overcame it. Perfect in 4 starts around 2 turns. His lone defeat was a sprint at Santa Anita. he is the deserving favorite. He's the best from the West.
Take a look at his work yesterday. He breezed a half mile in 47 seconds flat. He is on the inside here of Feel the Magic. Now, Feel the Magic broke his maiden claiming 50, sprinting on the grass, but he does have some talent. And as you'll see here, clearly best late was Journalism. Let's bring Kevin Kilroy back in. It's always interesting to see who the trainers use, Kevin, as the workmate for these horses.
Yeah, workmates are definitely important, but at this level, I just trust that the trainers are matching it right. And maybe this is more of a cue to bet the other horse that's being teamed up with the Derby or Oaks horse, but this was impressive. You saw the inside runners early in the work. You'll see them again. So Journalism just moving so well early and then so well late. He'll run down those runners from the other barn. I mean, I think this is what we've been seeing from McCarthy with his Bullard before, that'll have him on the inside, even though Journalism isn't necessarily a lead horse, and just have him take that pressure. So this is a very typical work for the McCarthy barn. Very strong move. Journalism is going to be bringing his best when he comes to Churchill.
Again, scheduled to arrive here on Tuesday for trainer Michael McCarthy. He will have a maintenance work coming up next weekend. Very, very curious to see how he handles the main track here at Churchill Downs.
I really like the gallop out here, Joe. Very nice. And as Kevin mentioned, him on the inside, he was well within himself in hand, and he levels off beautifully in the concluding stages.
Take a look at the Steve Asmussen trained pair for this year. We're going to start with Publisher, who, like Steve in the Derby, is still a maiden on the racetrack. The runner-up last out in the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. And his stablemate, Tiztastic, had his coming-up party last out in the Louisiana Derby at the fairgrounds, and they are regular workmates, and this was probably the workout that had people talking the most. As we send it back to Kevin Kilroy, you've had an opportunity to see both of these horses train. Like I said, Kevin, this is not the first time these two horses trained together, and it was very interesting to see how this one played out.
Yeah, this is interesting work. We've seen time and again that Publisher is the alpha of the two when they've worked together. Now, they've worked together at Oaklawn Park. And you got to remember that Steve Asmussen was talking about he brought Tiztastic to fairgrounds, back to fairgrounds, because he always worked better there. He seemed to like the track better at fairgrounds. So maybe Tiztastic is a little bit of a track-specific horse. But we see that Publisher just kind of gets away from him. You can see the exercise rider look back. I don't think that was the design. I think that they wanted to probably stay together closer throughout, and maybe Publisher was just moving better and got away. Maybe Tiztastic's rider was just trying to reserve him a little bit early. He gets up to him, gets pretty close to even, and Publisher just pushes him off again. That's what we've always seen when these two have been together. I don't know if it's a move forward for Publisher or just more of the same from what they've always been doing together.
And it's interesting, Tony, this horse Tiztastic, who has obviously done his best work at fairgrounds, is 0 for 2 at Churchill. He was second in the street since the Sovereignty. Sovereignty was awesome that day. And then he was third in the Kentucky Jockey Club last out here at Churchill, back losing to First Resort.
Well, there's the cause for concern, is how much they were really asking Tiztastic to try to draw on level terms. That's why I found it to be a negative move from him. I'm glad Kevin has let us know that Publisher has outworked him many, many times in the past.
Talk next about Final Gambit. This was an important work to see how he handled the main track off of a victory last out of the Jeff Ruby, coming from dead last over a racetrack that kind of favored off the pace types, Tony.
Yeah, that particular day on Jeff Ruby Day, horses were really making big circling moves. In fact, Luan Machado won the late daily double, reminiscent fashion of the Ruby, with a big sweeping outside move in the nightcap. This horse looked very good over the dirt course, and that's what we wanted to see.
Let's bring Caitlin Free back in, because you had an opportunity to see Final Gambit race in person at Turfway Park. And this was, like I said, Caitlin, a very important move to see how Final Gambit handle the main track here at Churchill Downs. Coffee Talk, the workmate, is no slouch.
Yeah, I've actually seen all of Final Gambit's races, whether it be here at Churchill Downs or at Turfway. Liked him when he debuted on the grass. And I don't ever think it's been a surface thing necessarily with Final Gambit. I think it's more been a maturity type of a thing. This horse has just blossomed over the winter, and he's gotten really good under Luan Machado. I think really the key has been to take this horse off the pace, give him a target to chase like they did here with Coffee Talk in this work. And I listened to the media stuff that Brad Cox was saying following this work, and he was very, very pleased with it. Said Juddmonte is very realistic when it comes to their horses. They're not trying to rush horses to get into the Derby, and this horse had to really prove himself to be able to have an opportunity in this race over the dirt, and he certainly has done that. He's been very, very pleased with his last 3 works over the main track here at Churchill Downs. Thinks he's progressing well. And there he goes here, passing under the finish line, just grabbing Coffee Talk very, very easily. And I thought the gallop out potentially was probably the most impressive part of this work.
Final Gambit very strong on the gallop out here. I know Kevin was impressed with this, and this work certainly moved Final Gambit up my Kentucky Derby list. Kevin, real quick here on this.
But you just could see when he went by Coffee Talk.
Let's go to Brad Cox instead.
That win at the finish line is when you started turning your attention toward the Kentucky Derby. And, Juddmonte's, they're always very realistic with their horses and like to put them in the right spots. And, we talked about it and thought we'd bring him here to Churchill, let him train on the dirt. If he handled it well, we'd, pursue the Derby. And like I said, 3 solid moves. He's really moving well over it. Rider's happy with him. I'm happy with him. His energy level's really good, and we're in a good spot with him. I think a lot of the Derby has to do with horses being able to handle the 1.25 miles. And Final Gambit, he's out of a Tappet mare. We actually trained the mare for Juddmonte. She was a grass horse. She was fast. She was by Tappet. She almost broke the track record at Ellis, a mile on the turf, I think, when she broke her maiden. So, he definitely has the stamina. I don't think the 1.25 miles is going to be an issue. It's just about getting the setup and getting a good trip.
Final Gambit with that excellent move yesterday, and he's going to be a nice price on the first Saturday in May for Brad Cox, who also has Tapan Street. People are watching from all over the United States, all over North America, all over the world on the various social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and X. And happy Easter to everybody out there, and thanks for joining us so early in the morning. Maybe it's the afternoon, maybe it's the night where you're watching us, but we welcome you. And if you've got a question for any one of our experts, Caitlin, Kevin, Tony, myself, and you've got an opinion, feel free to send those in and use the hashtag Kentucky Derby, KY Derby, for the hashtag. We'll try to get to a lot of those questions a little bit later on in the show. All right, we're going to take a short break. Don't forget the designated training session coming up at 7:15 in the morning. That will be Eastern time, so that's about 13 minutes from now. We're going to take a look at the Kentucky Oaks contenders when we return here on the Kentucky Derby Morning Work Show. And this work yesterday from Whit Beckman's trainee was certainly no joke.
Place your bets with Twin Spires Handicapping Insights, our expert picks, or just by choosing a name that catches your eye. No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires. Get your money back if your horse finishes second or third in eligible races.
The Kentucky Derby, Woodford Reserve Bourbon is a spectacle for the senses.
We are back on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show. As you can see, the tractor's harrowing the track at his maintenance time as we are slowly approaching the designated training hour for the Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby horses. And a lot of them are going to have a walk day today, so the action will not be anywhere near as fast and furious as it was yesterday when we had several workers on the racetrack. As you can see, the main track rated fast, and the temperature is right around 60 degrees. Another beautiful day in Louisville, Tony, and I hope we get something similar for Kentucky Derby weekend.
Without a doubt. The weather has been beautiful the last couple of days. Let's keep it going another week and a half, another 12, 13 days. So.
Yep, we've got opening day coming up on Saturday. The draw for the opening night card will be coming up on Tuesday, and the Kentucky Oaks the first Friday in May. That'll be drawn on opening night along with the Derby after race number 5. Let's take a look at the Oaks leaderboard. Kevin Kilroy mentioned Simply Joking how impressive she was. I thought Quiet Side's work at Keeneland was absolutely awesome. Those two went hoof to hoof in their most recent start. As we take a look at the top 10, honestly, a lot of the horses that I've seen in this top 10 for the Oaks have been training well.
Yeah, Take Charge Milady had a very nice work herself. So the Kentucky Oaks is shaping up nicely. There could be some good value if you're not going to be on Good Cheer's bandwagon.
You see the supplement there, and as promised, was not an original nominee. Quick Kick is the 14th and final horse. Remember, 20 in the Kentucky Derby, 14 in the Kentucky Oaks.
All right, those are the also eligibles. We saw Drexel Hill outworked by Simply Joking, and here it is, Joe.
Yeah, let's take a look at it here. Simply Joking on the inside. She's always been a horse with a lot of natural speed. As we bring in Kevin Kilroy, Drexel Hill, Kevin, is a horse that is certainly on the improve. I thought she worked pretty well, Drexel Hill, but she was no match for Simply Joking.
Yeah, Drexel Hill definitely moved well with Simply Joking. We've got Florent Giroux up on Simply Joking, that practical joke filly. You always can tell with that blue and yellow helmet. He lets you know that he's there. And you can see his biceps are bulging, and Junior Alvarado might laugh at that as he's had his little fun with Flo in terms of increasing the strength of those arms. But he's getting his arms full here. Simply Joking, holding off Drexel Hill, who has become a very good workhorse. They put the blinkers on Drexel Hill. They took them back off before winning the Busher. She's no slouch at all. Obviously, she's in the Oaks, but this was a big move. She's a big filly. Beckman has always liked Simply Joking and thought that she's got great things in store. I think we're going to see a huge run from her on that first Friday in May.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you're looking for an alternative, Tony, to Good Cheer, Simply Joking, obviously, and Quiet Side, who ran 1-2 in their most recent prep. Tenma, maybe the bounce back from Southern California. Those would be the next tier of horses in the betting.
Without a doubt, I like both the gals that exited the Fantasy. I think they're both going to get a lot out of that race. They tested one another tremendously down the lane, and Simply Joking is relatively fresh. She is very inexperienced, and she's very dangerous coming up to the Oaks.
That's what we think about the work. What is trainer Whit Beckman's thoughts on what he saw yesterday morning?
The work went more or less how we designed it. It was a quick work, 58 and change, which generally is quicker than we organize things. But I wanted something sharp. I put Simply Joking inside with that intention. She is just a beast of a workhorse. Always does everything quick. So she's coming off a 5-week layoff, and Drexel Hill coming off a 9 weeks. So just wanted something sharp, get a good blow out of both of them, and they did it together easily, and we're happy with it. Just coming off a layoff, obviously, we didn't change much with her. She's always been a real easy filly to train, so very straightforward. We're just trying to keep her happy, and now we're starting to ratchet things up. Obviously, with that work today, it was maybe a little quicker than she wanted to go, but she stuck in there. She handled it very well. If I would have switched them around and, put her inside, I could have changed the complexion of it. But for her, it's what she needed, and we're happy with it.
There you see Simply Joking finishing up that work inside of Drexel Hill. And if I was Whit Beckman, I'd be very pleased with both horses. Quiet Side defeating Simply Joking in the Fantasy and what was basically a match race in the final quarter of a mile. And here she is at Keeneland, Tony, and I was very impressed by this move. It's solo, but I love the way she did it.
Well, there's the key, solo. You'll get horses that work very, very fast in company. For Quiet Side to work 59 seconds all alone is ultra, ultra impressive.
Yeah, in hand too.
In hand, just doing it very, very easily. A good-looking move, a very solid contender. She ran some big races against Immersive last year as a 2-year-old, the 2-year-old champion filly. She is legit, no question about it.
Talk about Whit Beckman, a good young and up-and-coming trainer. Same with Will Walden, who's got Bless the Broken, who has really improved during the course of this 3-year-old season. Let's take a look at this one's work from yesterday. And Bless the Broken is a horse that doesn't have a lot of natural speed, but she's going to absolutely crush her stablemate here if we can bring Kevin Kilroy back in. Accelerated nicely, a little bit of a nudge past the wire. I thought this was excellent, Kevin. Not necessarily spectacular, though.
Yeah, another filly that hasn't been fast enough to win the Oaks, but is she moving forward? Wow, that was a big clearing of that inside company there. She was getting that little bit of a nudge, a little bit of urging late, but I thought she worked fantastic. Definitely moving forward. She'd definitely appreciate a wet track come that first Friday.
Talked about Whit Beckman with Simply Joking in Drexel Hill. He's got a Kentucky Derby contender as well with Flying Mohawk. This one breezed 5 furlongs in a minute inside Honor Marie, who ran in the 2024 Kentucky Derby. He goes 12, 23 and 2, 35, a minute flat out of 113 and 2. This horse has a little bit more of a turfy pedigree, but he thought he handled the main track pretty well, particularly Tony Quickly against a horse like Honor Marie.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's on the inside. Inside workers get a lot more than the outside. They have constant pressure, and they have to really work hard to maintain their position.
Again, the runner-up in the Jeff Ruby last out. This is a horse that there were questions about his ability to handle the dirt. What did Whit Beckman think about the move?
He was here last fall, and then he was down in Fairgrounds for a while before he shipped up, but he has always been pretty solid on dirt. I've never had an issue where I thought he couldn't run on it. So, we're trying dirt for the first time. Obviously, it's in the Kentucky Derby, one of the toughest marquee races for 3-year-olds. But at this point, I have no indication that he won't run a competitive race. He will be a long shot, but like I said before, he don't know that.
Again, we're about 5 minutes away from the designated training time for the Oaks and Derby horses as we continue to take a look back at some of the recent works from both the horses in the Derby and the Kentucky Oaks. And we have a work here from American Promise, who worked at Oaklawn 7 furlongs. This horse is on the outside of the stablemate, Tony Bontemps. Now, again, we talked about, how you match these horses up. Bontemps is an 0 for 7 maiden who has never hit the board. This work is going to look really good, but I think it might be a little bit of a mirage. What did you take from it?
Well, I like the fact it's a gate move. I like the fact he goes 125 and 1, but apparently he's fairly quick because he worked in early March and 111 and change when he was out worked. So, as you mentioned, the work made is 0 for 7, and I think it's very important that when we are evaluating works that we figure out who they are working in company with, and it's a good way to gauge the quality of the work. He's good. He's supposed to dust this horse. He really is. It's a very good confidence builder for him. D. Wayne likes to let his horses rock and roll. He likes to let his horses work longer distance. It's a thing that I grew up with my handicapping whenever I'd see 7 furlong moves, 6 furlong moves. He's drawing away from an inferior competitor, and he's supposed to do this.
A nice segue here because American Promise likely is going to go forward, and we would think that the next horse we're going to take a look at, East Avenue, would be in that category as well. Now, East Avenue threw in a clunker in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He was training up to the Risen Star for his 3-year-old debut, where he put in a very disappointing performance, put the blinkers on in the bluegrass, and was a very good second and a very game second with the blinkers on. Now we see him in this work just absolutely cruising over the main track at Churchill Downs, and we expect him to run not only a big race but to be forwardly placed in the Kentucky Derby. Brendan Walsh has had a challenge with East Avenue. What did he think about yesterday's move?
We were very happy with him. We just wanted to give him a half mile and let him get back into his routine. He was showing the last few days like he needed to do something. So yeah, it went well. He did it nice and easy, and we're happy enough. We're on target. I don't know that we need to be as aggressive. I think he learned an awful lot in the bluegrass. He's fit. He's ready to go. I think it's just a question of taking him over, but at the same time doing what needs to be done with him. It shouldn't really, we'll just let him cruise along from here, and hopefully he has a nice work next week, and then we'll be good to go. I think he learned a lot the last day, and it was good to see him knuckle down and fight a fight, which we hadn't seen him do before, which he didn't have to do before, and we hadn't seen before. So that was good, and I think he'll learn an awful lot from that. He's a smart horse, and hopefully he takes that to play the next day in the Derby, and we get a good draw and a good trip, and if we do, I think we can be right there.
Just moments away from the designated training time, East Avenue with that equipment change. What a difference a race makes from the Risen Star to the Bluegrass with the equipment change of the blinkers, Tony. We saw a horse that quit in the Risen Star but didn't give an inch in the Bluegrass.
Yeah, he did not, and it seems that he's really thriving in Kentucky. Both of his clunkers are out of the Bluegrass state, so that bodes well for him on the first Saturday in May. As Brendan mentioned, I think post position draw is very, very important for East Avenue. You'd like to see him draw an outer post.
As we bring Caitlin Free back in the Blinker edition, Caitlin, wasn't the only equipment adjustment that Brendan Walsh made on this horse.
Yeah, I'm not sure when this equipment adjustment was made on him. He's been in this bridle for as long as I can remember. I'm actually going to talk about the noseband that goes along with the bridle he wears. This is called a grackle, or you can also call it a figure eight. I've also heard it called a Mexican noseband. It's something that you put on the bridle. It's really designed to kind of keep the horse's mouth shut. There's horses that will cross their jaws that typically you would use maybe a grackle on. It's something that was named after the 1931 Grand National winner that it was made for, of course, named grackle. It's typically something that's used in Europe, so really not surprising that this tack is something that Brendan Walsh does utilize. Sometimes you'll see Brad Cox with it. Sometimes you'll see Bill Mott with it. I've actually seen Sovereignty in one, and kind of the way to decipher a grackle from any other type of noseband is the sheepskin piece. The rest is about halfway up the bridge of the nasal bone on the horse. This connects the two pieces of leather. One hooks under the horse's chin. The other comes up underneath the cheeks. This prevents a horse from crossing its jaws. It's a tool that persuades horses to keep their mouths closed. You can use them too for horses that are trying to put their tongues over bits, or if you have a horse that kind of is wearing a specialty type of bit, they can't really wear a regular noseband because it interferes with it. This is something you'd maybe use, and you see it kind of becoming a little bit more popular here in the States, especially with trainers here. You can also use it in eventing. Like I said, it's something that's a little bit more common. Over in Europe, Frankel was one of the first horses that I saw really use this, but it's something that is used quite a bit over there. So, guys, it's really not surprising to see someone like Brendan Walsh use this piece of equipment. About half of his horses, maybe a little bit less, do wear them.
All right, thanks, Caitlin. We are approaching the designated training time for the Kentucky Oaks Fillies in pink and the Kentucky Derby Colts and Geldings in the case of Burnham Square in that high-letter yellow, and Lacara is anxious to get on the racetrack. And Tony, this is a horse that you've been fond of since basically the very beginning, coming off a signature win in her most recent start, and curious to see how she gallops this morning. As we mentioned earlier, it's going to be a light day.
Yeah, it's going to be a light day, and she looked good winning the Ashland. She had things well within herself, and that's good. She was expected to run big when she found the front the way she did early. I've liked her. I liked her in her second career start against Eclatant, and I liked her in the Pocahontas as well.
All right, Lacara anxiously awaiting to get on the racetrack. Several other Oaks and Derby contenders as well. And we're going to have the action for you on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by Twin Spires in just a bit. Quick break here.
As they head to the back stretch, it's a tight pack.
He's going to pull ahead. The Twin Spires expert picks were all optimistic.
You've got the best speed rating in the field. Don't fail me now.
Man, I love this horse's name.
And from far behind, here comes Drake. It's neck and neck. Drake is winning. Drake wins.
Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby. Get your money back if your horse finishes second or third in eligible races.
We are back on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by Twin Spires, and I can make out that name. It's not easy to do, unfortunately, but that is Owen Almighty, one of the contenders for the Kentucky Derby. And quickly, Tony, with this horse, maybe we're going to reroute to the Pat Day Mile. It was announced a couple of days ago that he's back in the Derby picture.
It's hard to pass up the temptation of running in the Kentucky Derby, but this horse seems like he would have been a big-time player in the Pat Day Mile.
No doubt, and the Pat Day Mile, I think, is going to shape up to be an awesome race.
It is.
You know, you get that trickle down from the horses that don't quite feel like they want to run in the Derby, but you also get that trickle down from horses that just think they're going to be better over an elongated one-turn mile sprint distance. That race is always very fun, always very potentially lucrative to handicap when it comes to a betting perspective.
Joe, your live long shot on debut.
My live long shot on debut, and I did not get a live long shot price because word was out on Owen Almighty. Let's take a look at Lacara. She already has quite the resume. Tony, we've talked about Lacara's road to the Kentucky Oaks so far. She's got natural early speed, but one thing in her favor, she's also proven at Churchill.
Yeah, she is proven at Churchill, and another thing in her favor, she's proven around 2 turns. Her defeat in the Devona Dale was a 1-turn race. She seems better at 2 turns because she can really settle into a nice fluid stride out of the starting gate.
We've been waiting for a few rider assignments, a couple in the Kentucky Derby, but a few more in the Kentucky Oaks. And I think Caitlin Free's got some news on some of those rider assignments for the fillies. Caitlin?
Thanks, Joe. We can fill in those last 2 TBAs. Thanks to Dave Grinning, who just sent me a message. The rider assignments on 5G and Fondly have been confirmed as of this morning. Manny Franco is going to take over the mount on 5G, who has quite a bit of speed. She's going to be one that is absolutely forward in this year's Kentucky Oaks, and a horse that I'm a big fan of, Fondly, the winner of the Virginia Oaks. Irad Ortiz Jr. is going to take over that mount. So that is a big assignment, with Irad being a rider that a lot of people gravitate to. Fondly is 2 for 2, but Manny Franco on 5G, Irad Ortiz Jr. on Fondly. So that is going to confirm the entire field riding assignments for this year's Kentucky Oaks.
All right, thanks, Caitlin. There you see Lacara. Again, these horses are basically out here to stretch their legs leading up to the Derby and the Oaks here on Easter Sunday. Lacara ridden by Dylan Davis. She's won 2 of her last 3. She won the Suncoast. Then she ran in the Devona Dale, Tony. She was second behind the Queen's MG, who was off the Kentucky Oaks trail. But that was a 1-turn mile, and I thought she was a huge price in the Ashland. I don't know for sure if you took advantage, but I know I texted you right after the race when she won it at 9-1.
I had a couple dollars on her. That's for sure. You know, I like her. I'm very loyal with my horses that I pick early on in their careers. I will say this, that I think she's a little bit up against it. I think Good Cheer obviously is number 1, but I have a lot of respect for Quiet Side, Simply Joking, and Tema. Those would be the other 3 that I would maybe look to try to see if I could defeat Good Cheer.
It's interesting because we talked about Quiet Side and Simply Joking wanting to go forward. This horse wants to go forward as well. So theoretically, you would think that the pace would be more than honest enough for a horse like Good Cheer, although I think Quiet Side might be capable of sitting just off.
Yeah, I think she can sit as well.
That early fray. Let's send it up to Kevin Kilroy on the 4th floor, taking a look down. Kevin, I'm guessing, not as much activity. We've been talking about that as far as how many horses are on the track. A lot of horses with walk days here today. Your thoughts on what's going on out there, if you can give us a kind of an idea, and also Owen Almighty currently galloping on the track.
Yeah, we've got a very quiet morning. We've got the Outriders, and we've got these 2, as expected with Easter, right? I mean, these 2 are very interesting to me in terms of the fact that we haven't seen them work since their performance in the Bluegrass and the Ashland, right? There looks like maybe the 25th for Lacara is the next time we will see her drill. And Owen Almighty, I don't have information yet for when his next move will be, but it does give me a little bit of pause to think that with both of them, we're not seeing them come back to the track to have that sort of maintenance move like we saw from East Avenue and Burnham Square yesterday, that they are, just sort of taking in the sights, getting a nice little gallop in, and possibly, it makes me wonder if we're going to come up a little bit short come the Oaks and the Derby. But Owen Almighty moving right now. He seems to be feeling good, as we've always seen him do. He'll be a part of the pace for sure, unless they just sort of pull back on him or the post position changes the plans for that. But I think he's moving well on the track, and that's what you want to see.
Tony, we know this horse very well. He ran at Ellis Park.
Right.
I mean, and he's, gritty for sure. What distance limitations he has, he's kind of exposed himself, I think, in that category.
A little bit. They found some, how do you say it? They got a little more enthusiasm with the Tampa Bay Derby victory. I think his performance in the Bluegrass really kind of hinted that the Pat Day Mile seemed like the logical spot. Kevin's mentioning, we haven't seen a maintenance move come back from him. Probably has a lot to do with the late change of plans, because you're going to prepare a horse a lot differently for the one-turn Pat Day Mile than you will for the mile and a quarter Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, the winner of the Tampa Bay Derby, Gate to Wire, got away with a 48-second opening half that particular day, and then just came up short. I mean, he chased East Avenue. The pace was fast in the Bluegrass, but he could not go with those horses late, finishing 6th, beating a little bit more than 4 lengths was Owen Almighty. We're going to go back to Lakara here and just talk a little bit more about her. Not a lot going on the racetrack here this morning. Maybe we can orchestrate a working company between those two. I think that would be kind of interesting to see, but I don't think the traders would be too happy about that. Gate to Wire winning the Ashland. We talked about her success at Churchill Downs. She was 6th on debut, but that was sprinting in the slop. Then she got a sprint win. Gate actually ran 2nd, 5.5 furlongs on a fast track at Churchill. Came back in the Pocahontas later on after breaking the maiden easily at Saratoga to win from off the pace, Tony, interestingly enough, in the Pocahontas. That was somewhat circumstantial. In her 2-turn races, she's always shown speed.
Yeah, she has always shown speed. I really liked her Pocahontas victory. For her to come from that far back, she was 11th in a field of 14 through the early stages. That led me with a little more confidence with her. She didn't run too well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly, perhaps overmatched. She's really going to have to step her game up, I think, to be one of the top contenders in the Kentucky Oaks.
Always great storylines in the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby. And standing by with one of this year's media darlings is Caitlin Free. Caitlin.
Well, thanks, Joe. I am very pleased to be here with this morning's interview. It's Lonnie Briley, one of my favorite stories coming into this year's Kentucky Derby. And happy Easter, Lonnie. Good to see you this morning.
Oh, I'm just fine. Thank you.
Want to talk to you a little bit, of course, about Cole Battle. When you guys arrived here about 2 weeks ago, you were quoted as saying, when you acquired this horse, you were looking for a racehorse, not a Derby horse. So how did this horse end up becoming the latter?
Well, he broke his maiden first time out, and then I went to Kentucky Downs with him, and he ran in a juvenile. It was a $1 million race going a mile on the turf, and he got in trouble out the gates. A horse kept bumping him, and then the jockey took him back and then come back and made one run, and he was probably 18 lengths out of it down the stretch, and he come running and then galloped past the winners 5 or 6 lengths, and right there it kind of shook me and said, it's more to this horse, and so then, I went to the Jean Lafitte, and he won that, and I went to the Springboard Mile, and he won that, and then I went to Oakland with him, and the Smart Jones, and he won that, and then he won the Rebel, and I said, well, he just kept climbing the ladder, so, and then we ran an Arkansas Derby, and got in a little trouble there. The jockey got a little nervous and pulled the trigger too soon, but he come out of it good, still ran 3rd, so we giving him a chance, and see what happens.
That's all you need is a chance. And following that run when he was 3rd in the Arkansas Derby, you were quoted as saying that he maybe came into the race a little bit short. You got 3 works out of him, potential that he needed 4. How have you tweaked his training style coming into this Derby?
Well, he's been working hard over here. Every week he works, and he comes back good, and he's happy and everything, and so in the Arkansas Derby, he was a little fresh the day of the race, and I had to saddle him on the walk, and I never had to do that before, and then when the 2 front runners went out there and he was sitting 3rd, I was kind of happy with that, with the fractions, but it's just when they started backing up, the jockey moved him, and it was just too soon.
Your first, some of your first graded stakes starts have came with this horse. We're going to take a look back at the Rebel Stakes, and this was a big-time performance with this horse. As you mentioned, he just has kept climbing the class ladder. Take me through your thoughts with this race here.
On the Rebel, well, when they broke, he always breaks good, and you can kind of place him where you want him, and then the speed horses went out, and when they went 45 and a half, I said they're going to back up, and he'll be right there, and there's another horse at the 7/16 hole bumped him a couple of times, so the rider went on head forward with him and then moved him, and almost moved him a little early, but he went around the horses, went to the front, and caught the lead horse and ran a good race. You know, he went by right at a couple of lengths, and we was proud of him. You know, I think that was one of his better races in the Rebel.
Absolutely. I have it earmarked as Tuesday, the potential for his next breeze. Of course, probably some of that is weather pending. Just take me through what you're expecting from this next work for him, something maybe that's a little bit more serious or something like a maintenance type of a drill.
More of a, maintenance. He's not a big workhorse. You know, he kind of saves himself. And, I can tell a rider to work 101, 102, and he'll work 102 and then come back bucking and kicking to the barn. So, he's kind of a clown. And then this last work, he worked 101 and 1, which kind of surprised me. You know, he doesn't go that fast. And, but he... I kind of expect the same thing, and he'll gallop out strong. He always does, and then when he pull him up, he starts squealing and kicking up, like, ha, did what I wanted, but he's always took care of himself. He's never been a big workhorse, You're not going to gut him out and cripple him, he'll protect himself, so.
All right, well, best of luck coming up here these next couple of days, Lonnie. It's a pleasure to have you in Coal Battle here on the backside. Looking forward to keep watching him, and I'm definitely going to catch up with you with that post position draw coming up on Saturday.
Okay, thank you very much. Y'all been so wonderful.
Lonnie Briley, it's been a pleasure to catch up with him in Coal Battle the last few mornings here out on the backside at Churchill Downs.
What a gentleman, what a pleasant soul, 72-year-old Lonnie Briley, first Kentucky Derby. In fact, the Rebel was his first graded stakes start and first graded stakes win. Longtime Louisiana trainer and owner Cole Norman got in the game recently. They paid $70,000 for this horse at a Texas yearling sale, which is a pretty big price to pay, honestly, Tony, for a Cole front out of a dam who had 9 wins, but the average winning distance was 4.5 furlongs. The Grand Dam won once. Her average winning distance, her only win, was 5.5 furlongs, and this is the first full, so he must have seen something that he liked physically in this horse.
I guess so. What a cool guy. Very soft-spoken gentleman, and great story. I thought he ran well in defeat in the Arkansas Derby. I came out of that race more impressed with him than his victory in the Rebel because he had to make the first run into that fast pace, and I just thought it was a great race. He's going to get a lot out of it. Is he good enough to win the Kentucky Derby? I don't know, but if he did win, and if I didn't have $1 on him, I'd be very happy.
We know that Good Cheer is going to be the favorite in the Kentucky Oaks. We talked about some of the horses that would be, potential second, third, fourth, even fifth choices. Tenma certainly was on that list. She would have been the second choice if she didn't run so slow in the Santa Anita Oaks. Now, she did win going away. She beat the horses that were in front of her. Maybe took a little bit of a step backward off the Lost Virginess and earlier on the Starlet. This is her working at Santa Anita. Tony, 112-3.
112-3. Bob does like to let his horses work fast. This is a good fast move for her. 12 and change. The Santa Anita Oaks, it wasn't visually impressive, but it was her first race since the 2nd of February, so she had been away for more than 2 months, and at least she was finishing the race up in style. She had more in the tank, in my opinion. There probably is still more room for improvement. I wouldn't get off the bandwagon if you were on it going into it. I think she's going to have to step her game up. I think the other 3 I'm a little more impressed with, but this is a good move. She's gonna get a lot out of it, and she is still relatively fresh. Good Cheer's had a lot of races. Simply Joking's only had 3 races in her career, and Tenma now with this Santa Anita Oaks victory, her first start since early February. She's gonna come into this race in the right direction.
Yeah, interesting to see, much like journalism and a few of the other California-based horses, how they handle the main track here at Churchill Downs, Tony.
Look at her level off. She's leveling off beautifully, powerfully, and she's getting a lot out of it. It's a good move.
Good move for Tenma. That last race, she already had the points to get in the Oaks for the most part, and it was a short field she ran against last time. Maybe, screws weren't completely tightened, but I'm guessing they will be for the Oaks by trainer Bob Baffert, who no stranger to winning the Derby or the Kentucky Oaks. Social media questions again. Happy Easter to all of you watching us from all over the world on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Please feel free to send us any questions that you have. We do have a few coming in here. And I'm going to do a quick wraparound to Tony, then Kevin, then Caitlin on this one. Any long shots that have caught your eye, either what we saw yesterday in the mornings, past performances of horses that we haven't seen here at Churchill Downs yet of late. I've kind of doped out the ones that I'm going to mention, Tony, but I'm going to go to you first.
Well, I think we were all impressed with Final Gambit's work over the dirt yesterday. Publisher had a good move. Those are a couple of horses that perhaps I didn't have on my initial radar that maybe I could use in an underneath spot.
Kevin, what do you think?
You know, I thought Flying Mohawk moved very well with Anna Marie. I thought that was an interesting move in terms of what's going on in the morning. You know, Publisher is one that finds trouble in the races, but does seem to be holding himself very well on the track. So I think Publisher is one that you want to think about too.
Caitlin, what do you think for a possible long shot that we still got almost 2 weeks before the Derby?
Well, I'm going to talk about one that's not here but did work yesterday. It's going to be Bless the Broken. And I've talked quite a bit to Will Walden about this filly, and she is one that will absolutely take a giant leap forward if there is rain. He said, you know, he brought her to Turfway Park. She trains very, very well over the all-weather, so he's very confident going into the Bourbonnette Oaks. She had a very good performance in there. Was wanting to avoid Good Cheer, the Brad Cox filly, if he didn't have to run against her again in order to get into this race. She's a horse that's moving forward with leaps and bounds. I thought that was a very good drill from her. So if it does rain, I may actually pick her over Good Cheer.
Interesting. Caitlin dishing out a potential long shot for the Kentucky Oaks. I'll give you mine, a horse that we haven't seen here at Churchill yet, a Grande, four-trainer Top Pletcher, who was second best last out on the Wood Memorial, but was wide on the first turn, wide on the backstretch. Rodriguez went gate to wire that day over a racetrack, like Aqueduct often does, favored inside speed. Really curious to see Grande. Nobody's really been talking about this horse, Tony, because we haven't seen him here, and he hasn't had a signature win coming in, but I think this is a horse that continues to improve, and I like what I've seen from him so far in a variety of different departments.
You know, we're always talking about races and how the flow favored a particular horse, and Grande did not have a favorable flow in the Wood Memorial. He was farther back, and he was the one that was doing the running late compared to anybody else other than the winner, Rodriguez. So it's a good race from him. He still is lightly raced, only 3 career starts. You know, the window's high, or what's the saying there? The ceiling's high. He has
a lot of upside.
A lot of upside, a lot of room for improvement, and you know, that's why Sandman, Publisher, yeah, they ran well in the Arkansas Derby, but everything went their way. They were supposed to put in that big run. We're always looking for horses that didn't have it their way, that overcame the bias, that overcame the trend, and he's one that fits that bill.
Now, nobody mentioned Chunk of Gold as a potential long shot in the Kentucky Derby, but from a connections perspective, tough not to root for this individual who trained at Turfway Park yesterday underneath Kentucky Derby rider Jarrett Ludbury. As we bring Kevin Kilroy back on, the Louisiana Derby runner-up Chunk of Gold ran a couple of times at the fairgrounds as Ethan West found out that, yes, a horse that had been performing at Turfway Park where he was yesterday for this work can indeed handle dirt, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely handle dirt. That was one thing that talking with Ethan when he was down at fairgrounds that he said to me is that, yeah, this is a dirt horse for sure, and he really realized that when he brought him down for the Risen Star, and of course again for the Louisiana Derby. I thought this was a very great move yesterday morning. We can see him just starting slow, easing into it. This is the type of move that you want to see from this type of late kicker. I think his stride, his energy in it, the way he opens up, as we'll see him come a little bit closer to us, is showing us that he's well within himself and feeling himself in a good way, loving his job out there up in Florence. So I thought this was a very, very fine move.
Yeah, under a hold, certainly looks like he had more to give, and we owe Bruno DiGiulio a lunch for getting us this workout. Again, you can find a lot of these works at KentuckyBred.org, the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association with the Kentucky Thoroughbred owners and breeders, bringing us a lot of these workouts courtesy of Bruno DiGiulio and his team. They've had clockers at a variety of different racetracks, Turfway, Oaklawn, fairgrounds, on the grounds here at Churchill Churchill Downs as well. So we thank Bruno for his assistance. Again, KentuckyBred.org.
Yeah, Chunk of Gold really impressed me in his runner-up effort in the Leonidas. He was really making up a lot of ground on Baby Max that day, and he seems to be going in the right direction.
There you see Brad Cox contemplating what might be for the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby, and Katie Tolbert filming some of the action on the racetrack as the designated training time is winding down for the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby. And lots of stuff going on pari-mutually, a lot of signature wagers we're going to be talking about, a lot of great promotions courtesy of Twin Spires, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby and Churchill Downs, and great tournaments being offered as well, including the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, which is worth $250,000. Seats to next year's Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge involved, as well as NHC seats for next year, a BC seat, that Breeders' Cup coming up, obviously, in the fall. And Tony, we've got some qualifiers coming up. The next one's going to be on April 26th, opening night at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, $800, a lot more affordable than the $5,000 entry fee to get into the tournament itself. Tournaments are a great way to take advantage of your handicapping, because you can make a big score here, and this is a great handicapping contest you want to be in.
No doubt about it. We do have lots of really good things on the horizon in addition to the Oaks and the Derby, including opening night, which is going to be coming up on Saturday. The draw is going to be coming up on Tuesday for the opening night card, and always look forward to opening night to kind of, break the seal, so to speak, Tony, as we launched the racing programs here for the spring meet at Churchill Downs. But in addition to that, during the course of the card, we're going to actually draw the post positions for the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, that's a good thing we did last year. It allows me to get to call some races at Churchill Downs, which is pretty cool. And
you're going to take center stage.
There you go, right? That was kind of a good way to get on board here. Pick center stage, top pick. She pays $40-something, and I got to call her crossing that wire in time. Kevin Kirstein had a question for me about my purple shirt. Did the Easter Bunny leave me this? I think so, Kevin, because, once upon a time when I was little, the Easter Bunny skipped me, and I think he's making up for it with this lovely purple shirt this morning.
It looks very good on camera, Tony, as we once again wish everybody a happy Easter. Let's send it up to Kevin Kilroy on the fourth floor. Kevin, you've got a great view up there, but not really much to see. Any final thoughts on what you saw today, or, kind of where we're at this point?
Yeah, I will mention that we did see Built earlier in the morning before we came on. They were here before the designated works time. We also saw Quick Kick, so they did come out. Interesting not to see Sandman come out, not to see Take Charge Milady. So we also saw Good Cheer earlier. So the works the gallops that we saw were very easy from Lacara, as well as from Owen Almighty. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Are we trying to get that distance? Are we trying to get that sort of fitness in them, or are we just trying to sort of maintain what we already have? Because I think they would both need to move forward to get it done. And so I want to see more from them to really get behind them in the windows. Caitlin Free, you've got a different view there, ground level. What are you seeing? What's your thoughts from today?
Well, Kevin, it really is kind of the calm before the storm back here on the backside. Like I said, lots of action yesterday. So a lot of barns that really weren't sending horses out here this morning. It's also Easter, so it's eerily quiet back here. I will say that, but it's been a lovely morning. Enjoyed what I saw as far as gallops. I'll echo what you said about Lacara and Owen Almighty, those being the two that headed out during the designated training time. Also want to thank Lonnie Briley for that interview. Was a very good one, very informative, that you should also definitely go back and watch if you missed it. That was a little bit toward the back half portion of the show. I think it filled the time really well, since we didn't see a ton of horses on the track here this morning. But overall, like this morning, it's quiet. And like I said, sometimes I don't mind that.
Well, thanks, Caitlin, and I think that's what people need to realize, too. It is Easter, and in addition to the trainers, the assistant trainers, there are exercise riders, there are hot walkers, there are grooms, A lot of people going to church and celebrating this very important day from a religious perspective. So a good day to have a walk day, get everybody out of there early, kind of just regroup before we really get back at it tomorrow.
Yeah, because it's only going to get more and more hectic as we get closer and closer. So it was a nice quiet day this morning.
No doubt about it. Still several horses yet to arrive here for the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks. That'll happen over the course of this coming week. So a lot of horses that you haven't seen, you will have an opportunity to do so this next week. We've got Tuesday, the draw for opening day, which will be Saturday, that night card, downs after dark, so to speak, with the draw for the Oaks and the Derby as well. That's going to wrap it up for the Kentucky Derby Morning Work Show for today, Easter Sunday. Hope you all have a wonderful day. We will be back in these chairs tomorrow. Kevin Kilroy on the desk with me to talk through what we've seen so far and what we can expect moving forward. That's going to wrap it up for the Kentucky Derby Morning Work Show for today. See you tomorrow, same time, same place.